Hello everybody, my name is Seb.K and welcome to Tabletop Republic's YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be looking at a brand new sectorial for Infinity the game called White Banner for Jing. They are brand new, just got updated, and what I'm going to do is do an impressions video, just going through some of the profiles and having a look at what I think of each unit. And how some thoughts on how they could potentially fit together in an army list. I'm going to be doing another video about army list building and stuff when I've had a chance to really think about these guys. But right now, this is my first off impression. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go left to right on the profiles and tell you what I think. So we're going to start with the usual mech engineer, the Zhanshi Guosheng. In this sectorial, there are a couple of remotes and tags that you might want to take, in which case these guys are going to be pretty useful. They're pretty standard though, all the standard stats. You've got with 13, BS11, nothing special, but obviously teamed up with a servant bot, they're going to be pretty useful for repairing some of the other units, like the tags that I'll talk about later on in this video. Next up, we have the Chenggao. Now, this is a really interesting unit. So, first off, we've got a little fire team option here. We've got a wild card. First section to be a part of any fire team in the sectorial. With Holo Projector, that means they can impersonate pretty much anyone that's the same silhouette as them. So, Silhouette 2 models, which is an awful lot, and they could be characters or pretty much anything that's the same silhouette as them, and there's a lot of options there, and when we do army list building I will go through what those are. But having a look at the profile, Ballistic Skill 12 is pretty average, although coming off a Toha I think that 12 is still pretty good. Whip 14 is excellent, and Armor 2, 1 wound. They are fairly well priced though, even though they're only 1 wound models. So starting with the first one, the fact that they add a jammer to Jing is going to annoy a lot of people, especially with the fact that this guy is linkable and can pretend to be something else, and that is going to be a bit of an advanced tactic for a lot of players. But if you're pretending to be a Zhanshi and they come around the corner and want to deal with that Zhanshi link team, they may not be ready for the fact that you can jammer them. I don't think you get a burst bonus or anything when you're doing whip checks for a jammer, but I will have to look that up because I don't think this has happened before. If it has, it's probably because I haven't played that sectorial yet, so I apologise to anyone who has this in their army, but as far as I know, this is pretty new and disgusting. For those who don't know, jammers can isolate you if you walk up inside of zone of control, so that's a really good defensive option. Basically anything in the game that hits people through walls is usually pretty good, and especially something that can be so devastating to someone's attack, especially if they manage to get near enough to your link team. They're probably expecting to do some damage, and then you hit them with a jammer and their day is done, at least for that turn. So it is pretty damn good. I would expect to see one of these in almost every White Banner army. I can't see why you wouldn't. Red Fury options, spalding shotgun grenades, jammer, that's really, really good as well. They are extremely cheap actually for what they do. The Killer Hacker, again, so much utility. Especially in the link team for protecting that link team, especially if it's gone into a team that's got heavy infantry in it, which we'll talk about in a minute. But these guys are really, really good. The other versions, it's misprint here. I think it says like 2, it's meaning second section, I assume. With Red Fury and Mad Traps, and the fact that that's Holo Projector 2 means that you can put out Holo Echoes. Get surprise shot with this guy, although Holo Projector 2 is a bit unwieldy and takes a lot of practice to use. The stat line is still very good for the fact that it's got Mad Traps, which defends a section of the board for you, because Mad Traps can glue people in place, which is a scary thing to come up against. So this guy can go out and attack and then sit behind a building and know that he's got some coverage. He can also protect other units, so he's really, really good. I'm not sure I'm going to take the Killer Hacker version because there are lots of other Killer Hackers in this army that are actually probably better, although the willpower is pretty good, so it's not totally never going to be used. just that I think there are other options in the army that are better. Warcores of Warcore. We all know what they do. They flash people. They're annoying. And you should take one if you have 3 points. Zanshi core. So there's nothing special about these Zanshis compared to any other sectorial. That's a basic core. They don't have any new profiles as far as I can tell. Obviously, they're your cheap, basic line trooper with HMG, multi-sniper. Comes up in a link, is pretty good. Only in a link, of course, because their ballistic skill 11. Going up to 14, though, is pretty good. If you have the SWC spare, that multi-sniper is extremely cheap in a 5-man link to get that BS14 burst 2 in ARO. That's very, very good. I don't think I'm ever taking the light grenade launcher, because it's not got a great range band, and even at burst 2, I think there are better places to spend your SWC. Same with the HMG. You can just take a much, much stronger HMG, especially in link teams with all the wildcard troops. So I'm not sure I'm taking that. Missile launcher can be good because it's dirt cheap. And I played a lot of JSA, and I can tell you how annoying that missile launcher in a link team is. Even with lower ballistic skill, with the link team bonus, they still have to get rid of it. And if it gets lucky, it usually gets very lucky, because if you take a bad hit from a missile launcher, you're probably dead. The hacker, you're going to see that a lot because there's some great remotes in this faction, and it's the cheapest hacker as far as I can tell in the faction. Just bear in mind that if he's in a link team and you activate him, you activate the whole link team, so don't get your link team shot. He might be better off on his own somewhere. He's not a bad cheerleader as well, 19 points. Then you've got all your standard options. I like the fact that the lieutenant option is not costing an SWC as it does in some factions. But there are a couple of very good aggressive lieutenant options in this army. One's with higher whip, as far as I know, and there's loads of chain of commands, so you may not need to have one of those lieutenants that hides at the back of the field. You can always take a guy like this. Rather not take a guy like this and take one of the aggressive options instead. So that is Zanshi. The Hoondoon, this is a weird unit. I have looked at this a lot, and I cannot figure out, with the presence of Guilang and lots of other options in this army, why you would ever take this guy. Now, I would love someone to say in the comments and tell me exactly why you would take one of these. They are not linkable. They have camouflage, so they can be surprising, but there's no forward deployment. So they're not going to intermingle with your other forward deploying camo tokens that you can take in this faction. They're just going to be sitting at the back. He kind of reminds me of another JSA unit, actually, the Ryukin Unit 9. But the Unit 9, it has limited camo, but it has a couple of other options, I think. It's around the same points value. It has less ballistic skill, but it's only 5% difference, isn't it, at the end of the day? The only one that I could really see being that useful is the heavy rocket launcher. But there are so many good guns in this army that I just... the Hoondoon's probably going to get left at home, more than likely. The Legong. This is a really interesting character that seems to have been added to basically everything Jing. I don't know if he's Imperial Service, because I haven't checked since he got added, but this guy is brilliant. He isn't a heavy hitter, but he does have the utility. It's a fairly cheap 2-wound, effectively heavy infantry, although he's not classed as one. He is fast, he's medium infantry, and he has chain of command. And that is probably, I think, the cheapest chain of command option you have in this faction. And he's linkable, and he can be an part of any fire team. And of course, chain of command in most scenarios is a specialist, so he's bringing a lot to the table. Bioimmunity means that his no wound incapacitation is not going to get stripped off him by shock ammo. It also means, it doesn't affect him, but he could use his BTS if he wants to. But the reality is, his armor and BTS are the same, so that doesn't really matter. I like the shock marksman rifle, but if he's in a link team, and the link teams in this army are ridiculous, or potentially ridiculous, we'll have to see. But there are lots of other gun options on lots of other profiles, so you may not want to take the shock marksman rifle, but the chain of command one is just so handy. I'm really annoyed, though, because I play a lot of Aristea, that he doesn't have transforming wing guns like he does in that game, because I would have loved to have seen a version of him that had like something that's really dangerous, you know. But I guess they'd have to introduce a new weapon or a new rule set just to have that. So unfortunately, he doesn't have anything cool like that. Tiger Soldiers, these may be one of the best drop troops in the game. They are incredibly well costed. Mimetism on a guy like this is so ridiculously good. And if you drop one of these down, I mean, occasionally they get unlucky. I've had that happen a lot to me where they just die on their first attempt at shooting something. But what usually happens is that you drop them in a place that they didn't see coming. You start shooting things in the back. Ballistic skill 13 with Mimetism and a Spitfire. That's the one that I usually take, because that is pretty good for winning firefights. And if you're shooting them back, they're not shooting back at you anyway. And you're hitting on 16s. So that's crazy good. The multi-sniper seems like a weird one, but there actually could be a use for this. Seeing as you can walk on the side of the table, it's very, very, very situational. I wouldn't recommend doing it, although it's still probably better than the ninja, which we'll talk about later on, but because he's high ballistic skill and stuff. But the ability to drop down anywhere on the table could be useful if you're very confident about your drop ability and you've put up assisted drop. You might want to pop this guy in a building somewhere to get that sniper position, but again, it's really situational, very risky. Combi Light Flamethrower standard is okay, but if you're going to take that one, you might as well take the paramedic and have him be a specialist as well. The assault hacking device is good for that points cost, but there is better. There is better in the faction, so I don't think I'd take that. Obviously, you probably would never take the lieutenant. For some reason, it costs 1 SWC. Why would you want it starting on the table? If it's not starting on the table, then you're going to go and lost lieutenant. Let's have chain of command, and then when it comes on the table, it does get lieutenant order anyway. So I'm not sure why that's a thing. Again, someone please explain that to me. I'd love to hear your reasoning for that. The Yimao, this is weird. This is a weird unit. This is a Rodok, basically. So the Rodoks in Morats are super jumping, medium infantry. I believe they're medium infantry. I'm going to have to check. I've got Shazvasti up here, but let's have a look. I believe they're 4-2 move as well. That's right, show Rodoks. Yes, they're 4-2 move as well. But these guys are actually better than the Rodoks for similar points costs. I think in most cases they cost 2 to 5 points more. But for that, you get Mimetism. Oh, they have Mimetism as well. Oh, you get Multi-Spectral Visor 1, which is really, really good. They also have Fireteam Harris natively on the profile. I don't know if there's many troop choices that actually have that in any army, because normally it costs 0.5 SWC. And as you can see here, it doesn't appear to cost anything on all of their profiles. So they just get it natively. And with all of the Fireteam wildcard options you have in this faction, it's going to be pretty cool to start mixing and matching these guys with other units. They are a little bit expensive. Super jump on the model that moves 4-2 has always been a bit strange because it depends on the building size. If you want to jump up to a building and stuff and use that efficiency, sometimes things will be too high on tables that you play on. If they go the full distance, well, you better be sure that they're not going to end their movement somewhere that will get them shot. Although this faction does have a lot of smoke, which we'll talk about later, so you could cover their advance. All their guns are good. The AP Spitfire is good. Armor 2 and 1 wound is fine. Ballistic skill 12 is fine. So they're shooting good guns, but with sort of slightly, okay ballistic skill. The missile launcher does seem interesting, but seeing as they can never be in a core to get that BS bonus, and seeing as they're going to be only getting that extra 1 burst 2 on BS 12, I'm not sure it's reliable enough to spend that 1.5 SWC on. You could do the jump trick with them, of course. They do have super jump, but I would prefer to take the AP Spitfire if I wanted a decent gun. Also, the multi-rifle chain colt basic profile here, and the engineer down here, which are the two profiles I'd take if I wasn't taking the AP Spitfire. They both have a Panzerfaust, so if you do want to do rocket jump tricks, Quake style, you can do that with the Panzerfaust, fire both rounds off at something that you really need to destroy. They're also as good in ARO, of course, because if you're in a Fireteam Harris, you get burst 2. So I like that quite a lot. The engineer is really handy because this faction has a couple of very good attacking remotes, and they tend to want to be in the midfield. So if you're moving that remote up and you're moving these guys up behind, this guy can support that remote quite well. Whip 13 is average for the fixing, but that's okay. Yeah, I don't think you'd take this guy on his own, even though he's got a ton of stuff. He's just not very survivable, and he's better in a link team for that attacking role. Again, killer hackers are cool. There's loads of them as factions, so take your pick. I don't know whether you choose this one over others. It just depends on what you're doing with your fire team Harris when you build it. And again, you've got your basic, if you just want a basic specialist, this guy with all the stuff and Forward Observer is pretty good. Don't forget that Forward Observer gives you Flash Pulse as well as an option. A hacking device is cool as well. That might come up. One of the remotes that's really good, attacking remotes in this faction, doesn't have a repeater. So if you're moving that up, you might remove this guy up in the Harries to support. That's something I'll talk about when we talk about tactics and list building. The Hundoon. So, oh no, we've done that one already. Let's have a look. Did I skip a couple? I did skip a couple. So we're going to go back to Adil Mehmet. Adil. So this is a really good character, and there are a lot of really good characters in this faction. I love the fact that he's got a monofilament, because I just think it's hilarious. Critting with monofilaments, of course, kills the target outright, which is just, yeah, that's a day ruiner. And with all of the options, there is so much to break down here. Number 2 in link teams is great. He's wildcard, and he is without rules, so you can go in Sanchi cores, all kinds of stuff all over the place. In your Harry's teams, things like that. He's got chain of command as well, and he is Lei Gong plus. He doesn't have all the movement and stuff like that, but he has a better gun than the chain of command Lei Gong option. He is better in close combat. He's got sensor, which if you don't have that on one of your remotes, you're not taking that remote, at least he brings that. He's very, very good in the Harries, of course, because if they're moving up the table, he's got all of this utility. It gives you that close combat option. Chain of command and specialist operative are basically the same thing in a lot of factions, because obviously one gives the other. Veteran level 1, well, I think at the moment all characters are veterans. That might change, which is maybe why they've put this on the profile, but for the moment they're all veterans anyway, as far as I know. But yeah, he's really, really good, and he's really good like all the other characters in this faction. They all seem to do a similar job, which in a way is a bit of a problem. It may just come down to personal preference which one you take. Obviously, he's a little bit less survivable than a couple of the other characters in this sectorial with armor 2 and 1 wound. Yes, he has no wound in cap, but I believe one of the other ones is shock immunity, or Chenggao, which is just straight up 2 wounds. But yeah, again, he's got a lot of utility, and it's funny because in any other faction, if it was just this guy, you'd be like, oh yeah, he's really good, I'll fit him in somewhere. But with the other options, he might not actually get taken. Although, yeah, as I said, monofilament CC is hilarious. And then we're going to go to Jingka. I believe I got that pronunciation right. I looked it up. Again, this is another model that's insanely good in close combat, but he is unique, and this is the guy that I might take if I was taking a close combat centric character. There's a couple of them that I probably would take, but this guy might go in every time, because what he reminds me of, and I've been playing a lot of Toha recently, he reminds me of the Rassel boarding team, because he can go with a Shaolin monk who can throw smoke, which is actually better than the Rassel. They don't actually have smoke, although they do have nano screens, which is different. It's good in a different way. But he has the ability to sort of be that midfield fire, do attacks. He's attacking with potentially templates with that Shaolin buddy. He's got his own templates. He's got breaker pistols, APDA, CCW, and with martial arts 3 and CC23, which means he can take on really big, heavy targets and still do tons of damage with crits and halving their armor values and stuff like that, which is really, really good. Obviously, multi-rifles are very good. BS13 is actually a better shooter than the Rassel. Mimetism as well, he's imposing negative mods. Climbing plus, he can get anywhere. No wound in cap. Yes, he doesn't have shock immunity, but that's still very, very good. Basically giving him 2 wounds. This guy is an excellent excellent character. Oh yeah, and he's a specialist operative. It's yeah, he's everything. And I can totally understand you putting him in most of your lists. Because him with a Shaolin just has so many utility, has so much utility and so much potential to do lots of different things. With the Shaolin throwing smoke for him and other units, yeah, he's really really good, and I'm looking forward to seeing the model. I hope it's excellent. Unless it's already out, I might have missed it. Right, we did Lei Gong, we've done Yi Mao, and yes. So Chenggao. Chenggao is really, really good in every army that he's in, and the fact that he has the same wildcard status here that he does in Invincible Army is, well, that's pretty ridiculous, to be honest. Especially seeing as, he's a damn good shooter as it is. Fatality level 1 means his HMG is damage 16, if PS 13, if he's at a 5-man link, it's 16. He's armor 4, not 3, like most Yuyong. 2 wounds is obviously great. He's just excellent. And it's funny. It's funny because there's so many good characters in this, but the fact that he brings that HMG means that he's going to beat out a lot if you just want a really heavy, dangerous shooter. And the really interesting thing is, even though this faction doesn't have any NCO for using up those Lieutenant level 2 options orders here, you could still take this guy because you've got so much chain of command that you could still take this guy and just run him on his own. Even though he's definitely better in a link, it would be fine to have a ballistic skill 13, damage 16 HMG running up the field with 2 free orders. Also whip 14, of course, for that lieutenant role is really, really handy. But yeah, those 2 free orders can get him right into the middle of the table where he needs to without spending any orders. You can cover his advance with all the smoke that you can use with the Shaolin monks. Get him into a horrible position and just start raining fire down. And yeah, not a lot's going to survive against damage 16. He will chew through most unit types without any problems. And yet another amazing character for White Army, for White Banner. So yeah, he's really, really good. And when I start doing army lists, I'll probably put him in one of them for the next video to show you how I would use him. Dalfays are really good, although they are quite an old unit profile, and they seem to have... they're still good, but you basically get what you pay for, and in some cases I think you get a little less than you pay for. So infiltration and camo is brilliant on this guy, but only the assault hacker is a specialist. And I think the assault hacker is very lackluster considering there are other assault hacker options with infiltration, mostly the Guilang, which has a higher whip, is a hell of a lot cheaper. And if you want someone to just do that job, you should probably take that. As a shooter, of course, anything holding an HMG with camo is really, really good. But ballistic skill 13, yeah, it's good with the camo. Of course it's good. But at the points cost, I'm not entirely sure that either the Spitfire, the shotgun, or the multi-rifle is going to, get picked over some of the other heavy hitters you've got in this faction. Like, if you want something that's really going to do damage, you should use something in a Harry's fire team or a core fire team, get the ballistic skill bonus, get the dice bonus, excuse me, and get the dice bonus for that, and then they'll do a lot more damage than this guy will do on his own. I think if you're playing vanilla Jing, it made a lot more sense to have this guy. He just, he does a couple of jobs, but they've introduced so many units now that beat this guy out. Mostly the Moang, for example, which is a similar points cost, has mimetism and a whole host of other stuff. It's harder to kill. It's funny that this guy hasn't really caught up with the way the game's gone and some of the profiles that this army already has. So I'm not sure. You might still see him, and I might still take him, but it would be probably limited insertion where I would consider using this guy as an upfront shooter. Right, the Jujaks. So Jujaks they're a weird one. They're basically Zuyongs, but I actually think they are strictly better than Zuyongs in almost every way. Which is weird that Corvus Belli do like to make profiles like this. There are things that they are missing, of course. They don't have an HMG option. They don't have the tactical awareness options, but they can be a part of a fire team of Shang-Chi, which is interesting because they basically make a Shang-Chi link team cheaper. But they come with a whole host of awesome stuff. I mean, it's almost too much to break down. In link teams, we'll start with the top one. The Bursty Heavy Flamers are horrible. Again, coming off Toho, I can tell you how horrible that is. But there are the Breaker Combi is the one you'd probably take. It adds a Breaker Combi to any link team, which is a good gun, especially at Burst 4, and can take down heavy targets. So that's pretty good with a short range option and a medium range option. And then you have your long range option in the rest of the Harrys. It's great. They're good. If you add the Timbots to the Harrys team, then they've got Haki Protection, which again is even better. Missile launchers. It's probably the best missile launcher in the faction at BS13, and it might be the one that you stick up on a building just to be a roadblock, kind of like the Tanko missile launcher. It's similarly priced. I believe the Tanko one is 32. For reasons that I won't go into here, it's a lot cheaper, but it's still a good option. And I can tell you that from playing JSA as well, that even the Ballistic Skill 13 missile launcher at Burst 2 is still terrifying prospect for your enemy to deal with when it has 2 wounds and armor 3. Spitfire option, these guys just have so many good options. I actually really like this one here. If you're going to add the Timbot, I would prefer to take the boarding shotgun and Panzerfaust. So you've got range in the Panzerfaust. You've got boarding shotguns for close range at Burst 3, hitting on 19s in a Harry's team. That's just really, really good. And the engineer option, another good potential midfield engineer with a Harry's team moving up the table with like one Shang-Chi in it and one something else like Lei Gong, and then this guy to support your remotes. With it as another specialist engineer as well for classifieds. They're all really good options. There are a couple of maybe better lieutenants than this one, but it's still okay. But you can definitely do better for a lieutenant, I think, in this faction. Shang-Chis. Now, Shang-Chis are interesting. I believe they've had a huge update. Now, I never really looked at Shang-Chis before, because you just, in vanilla Jing, there were so many cool options that are around the same points cost as these guys. I can't remember off the top of my... Sujan. Yeah, Sujan is around a similar points cost to these guys. Would be beaten out by the Sujan every time. It's just way better in vanilla. But in this army, where you can link them, and you can do a lot of linkable options with these, because they can be a wild card, and they can go into a core of Shang-Chi's and all the Harry's teams in your army. You could definitely build a Harry's or a core around these guys. The heavy rocket launcher standing up on top of a building is really good at armor 4. It's armor 7 in cover, which is a tough unit to shift. I like all of the profiles except some of the basic ones, but a lot of these options are all going to be dependent on what you want to do with your list. I think there's a better assault hackers again in the army, but the tactical awareness here is good. But the tactical awareness heavy rocket launcher is also very, very good if you're planning on moving these guys out. The only problem is, of course, that if you've got the heavy rocket launcher, you want to stay at a fairly decently long range, which might cause conflicts with other members of your Harry's team not really doing much if this guy's firing away with his Burst 3 heavy rocket launcher, but it's still very, very good. I think a lot of the options here are good. I still think that this HMG option might get beaten out by Chenggao. Seeing as he's a wild card, he could take the place of this unit and just do a little bit better. But I still think there's a place for building fire teams around these guys and building a list around one or two of them, seeing as you don't have access to Zhuyong cores and things like that here, that are a little bit cheaper, a little bit more efficient. This is your way of building a fire team, a heavy infantry fire team. If you're going limited insertion as well, you might upgrade one of your other units to one of these guys. I mean, they're okay, but their options now, they're much better than they were, and they are definitely an option. Blue Wolf Cavalry. Now, this is probably the most interesting tag that's come out in a while. It is expensive. It only has one option, but it's still a really good option. Mostly, I mean, there are so many different reasons for this. There was the other day when people looked at this, it had a misprint or an error here where it said silhouette 5. So everyone thought it was the same size as the Moang. And if it was still silhouette 5, it would, in my mind, be one of the better tags in the game. But right now, it's still a good tag. It's not the best. Whether it gets run or not is probably going to depend a lot on how good the model is. But let's go through some of its differences over, say, the Guija. It's got a similar ballistic skill to the Guija, but it's way better in close combat. CC23 with a DA-CCW on a tag, especially the fact that it's, tags move 6-4, means that it's probably going to get in close combat quite a lot. It is very, very good for that. Heavy flamethrower, again, I believe the Guija has heavy flamethrower, yes it does. Obviously, AP Spitfire is not as good as a multi-HMG because you don't get the explosive round in ARO. And the multi-HMG does hit harder at damage 16 with that fatality, but it's still not a bad gun. This is the close range to mid-range fighter version of the tag. And the glue gun, I mean, it's okay, fine. It gives you an ARO option. Fireteam duo, again, that's just, I can't see anyone running a duo of these guys with all the stuff you've got in this faction. But it's funny because the other day when it was silhouette 5, it was so much more attractive. But now it's gone up to silhouette 6. It's, it's a tag. I think if it looks cool, you'll see it. If it doesn't look as cool or doesn't wow people, then I think it'll sort of get taken in a similar vein as the Guija. One thing I have missed, actually, I've just realised, is that it has full auto level 1, which basically gives it an extra dice when it's firing in the active turn, which does make its gun a little bit more attractive for active turn shooting than the Guija. I mean, it's then at that point, it's an AP damage 15 Spitfire on 5 dice at ballistic skill 14, and that's pretty juicy. But of course, the multi-HMGs are AP and shock, so that would be damage 16 on 4 dice. So it depends on which one you prefer, with a longer range on the multi-HMG as well. It's an interesting one. It's something that I loved when it was silhouette 5, but now I'm kind of like, okay, it's a tag. With all of the bonuses that tags have got recently, they're good. They're viable now, but it was special before. Guija is the Guija. Guija's been around for a while. I don't need to really say anything about it, I don't think. Chai Yao Kong is your standard flash pulse bot. They get AVA2, which is brilliant. Cheap order filler. So if you need a couple of orders added to your second group or just need a couple of orders to fill out, use those. The AVA3 for this is kind of hilarious. I'm trying to work out why, what sort of fluffy reason they've got for having 3 of these. And I don't know whether Invincible Army has 3, but I believe they can take 2. So 3 is a bit excessive. It would be hilarious to run 3 of them. It can be really, really funny. And of course you can buff it with a hacker. It's just one of those weird, fluffy, quirky things you can do in this faction that you can't do in others. But other than that, it is your both active turn shooter option and your ARO option, and this faction has a kind of a lack of really super strong ARO pieces. It has good ones, but nothing that's world beating, so you might end up wanting to take one of those anyway. Sombe Yao Kong, missile launcher, unlinkable unfortunately, which means that it's just your standard missile launcher remote, so nothing cool about that one. Wei Bing Yao Kong, this is your specialist robot. Nothing special about that other than the fact that you may want to take one. They're reasonably priced and you need sensor sometimes, so that's cool. Standard servant bot on the Yao Zhao, nothing special there. Yao Fang Long Ya. Now this is an interesting, maybe one of the most interesting attack robots that's been added to any of these factions. I think it's probably the most unique attack robot we've had added in a long, long time. It may be one first attack robot added in a couple of years. I can't remember another one that's been added that's completely unique and interesting. It's kind of like a Peacemaker armbot from Pano, with a couple of extra bonuses that make it very, very attractive. For starters, camo and forward deployment on the remote is unique and interesting. I believe Pano get mechanized deployment, which is similar. But that's still very, very good. It's obviously your opponent's going to know what it is because it's going to be a Silhouette 3 camo token, but the state itself is still very, very good. Being able to do surprise shot with these Panzerfaust is still good because there's two of them, which means you can burst to it, which means you'll get two sets of burst 2 rounds with that. And then when you want to engage in close, you can either use a submachine gun or heavy shotgun. I'm more partial to the heavy shotgun version, just because, the submachine gun at BS11, unless it's already been pre-buffed, is not great. But if you pre-buff this guy, and he's shooting his heavy shotgun or submachine gun, obviously ignoring cover, using assisted fire, they are going to be hitting on good numbers, and they're going to be good attacking pieces. And with the Harry's options for engineers in this army, you can get someone up there to repair it. So it's a good, cheap, attacking, fast throwaway piece, and might make a fairly decent ARO piece in a pinch. I wouldn't rely on it because it's only going to be burst 1, and camo is good, but it could be a surprise. But it's not. It's cool. It's cool that it exists, and I think you'll see it a lot of the time. I will probably take it if I have a spare 25 points. It's an amazing attacking option. There are lots of good ones in this faction, and if it was in Invincible Army, I think you'd see it almost every time. Just because they struggle to have decent fast attack options. But this sectorial, not that they have super fast attack options, but they do have a lot of stuff that's moving up the field very efficiently, and it might get beaten out by something like Lan Kai, which we'll talk about in a minute. So for that points bracket anyway. The Lu Duan, if you're where are we? No, Yaopi Pangolin. So the Pangolin is your standard toolbox remote. It has all this different stuff. They're all repeaters. You've got another AVA2, so you've got more options for your cheap 8-point orders. You've got an Evo hacking device, which may be really good in this faction with all of the crazy hackers you can take. You can definitely do coordinated hacking very well. And the fact that you may always want to take a regular hacker, which an Evo hacking device is, means that there's actually quite a lot of synergy and utility in this unit. So I actually don't mind it too much. It does what it does. It does what it does in every faction. I'm not sure why we've got the FTO option here. I think that's just because it is a standard now, but it doesn't have any linkable options, so it's not that useful. The Lu Duan is one of the two attacking remotes. We all know what this thing does. It's been around for a while. Hull Projector level 2 is really annoying. I recently just bought 3 Silhouette 4 Hull Projector icons so that I could use this unit just to try it out. It is extremely unwieldy moving that many Silhouette 4 models up the table all at once. And it's not really, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, as they say. If you run out of SWC, though, and you do want an attacking remote, you can do worse than this with assisted fire. It's going to hit on 15s. It's got a Mark 12, which is a good gun. Heavy flamers are horrible. And if you just want to throw it away for 21 points, you can run around the corner, hit someone's link team with it, and it can ruin days. It's pretty straightforward. It's not as good as the Ruishi, though, of course, but everybody knows that. Ruishi, you should take one of these all the time in this faction because you've got access to smoke in the Shaolin. They combo really well. They've got engineers again that move up the field, so you can repair this guy when he does go down, which he will. He occasionally does take a bad ARO and does lose a firefight and does need to be revived. And with your midfield engineers, that makes that pretty easy to do. Yeah, so those are really, really great. And Ruishi AVA2 as well, you might take 2, although I still feel that 2 is always a bit excessive with how easy they are to kill and their big silhouette value. They're hard to hide. Hiding 1 is good, is easy, but hiding 2 is not so easy. Guilang skirmishers, these guys are amazing. They've always been amazing. They've been around in Jing for a while, and these guys for me are your best infiltrating midfield option. They beat out most things in the faction, and they're still not a bad they're okay gunfighters. I wouldn't necessarily take this multi-sniper at BS11. I'm not sure you're going to get too much usage out of that unless you get them on top of a building. I have run things like a Clipsos, well, that's TO camo, slightly better, but I have run the things like a Clipsos sniper just to catch people unawares. In camo state, they will know it's there, so it's not quite as effective as a surprise tactic. Boarding shotgun is brilliant as a midfield attacker, really, really good. The combi rifle anti-personnel rounds is beaten out by the specialist version of that, which you should just take. If you want a midfield specialist, this is your one to take, especially with a deployable repeater. This faction can do hacking very well, as I said before. So that's a really, really good bit of utility there. Mine layers, of course, are good depending on the scenario you're playing. You might want the mine layer instead, just to get the extra mines out in the field if you don't have to do too much button pressing. The assault hacker version is your go-to assault hacker. It is whip 14, it is infiltrated, it's camo, it can hide amongst all your other camo tokens if you're taking more than one of these guys, or the other camo that's available in the faction. So I quite like that. I think that's where you should go if you want that assault hacker in your army. But other than that, these guys are really, really good, and you should probably take one or two of them whenever you can. Kunai Solutions Ninja. So this is basically a replacement for the Sniper Ninja profile in JSA and Jing, the profile that nobody ever took. And the reason nobody ever took this profile is because it's not very good at shooting for the multi-sniper that it's carrying. I'm not going to talk about the shock marksman rifle again, because there are just so many better shooters in this army. I know it has TO camo, but at ballistic skill 11, it's not going to get that much usage or, sort of guaranteed killing done, especially for that 0.5 SWC. There are just so many things in the army already that can do the job better than this guy. The multi-sniper was, it's a weird mix of abilities, having close combat abilities on a guy that you want to stay beyond 16 inches to get the good range for his multi-sniper. It's so situational that he'll actually be able to use that CC abilities, that it's, and they've sort of nerfed him because he's only got a shot CCW. So when he does use that CC ability, he may not even kill the target. They also dropped his CC ability down from 23 to 22, which I assume was to get the points down a little bit to see if people would take him now. But I just don't think he's that good. It's cool that he has climbing plus, but this is a TO. Oh yeah, he hasn't even got the infiltration ability that the old ninja sniper used to have, which used to mean that you could put it up and set up sort of crossfire situations in the middle of the table if you really wanted to run that profile. But him starting in the back line now, he's kind of a bit like the from a combined army. He's a bit like the Noctifer missile launcher. The Noctifer is way better with a missile launcher and a better ballistic skill. And him starting at the back of the board, I'm still not sure what they're doing with this profile. There may be the fact that, the TO camo in deployment thing is something that this army doesn't really have a lot of. I think this may be the only option for that. So I guess he fills that role. But it's so expensive, and I really would love to know, again, why you would take this over all the other cool things you can take in this faction. But please let me know if you come up with an answer for that. That'd be great. Liang Kai, this guy's really cool. I loved him when I saw the model. I almost was like, well, he may not be very good, and if he's not very good, this man, I'm still taking him because that model's incredible. Sometimes you've just got to take units that are fun, and it isn't all about competitive playing. Infinity is a very fun game, and it's always been more about what you do on the table. So having cool characters like Liang Kai around just to throw in for fun is always great. And now we've seen his stat line. This guy is so cheap. He's so cheap. I cannot believe how cheap he is for all the stuff he brings to the table. He kind of reminds me of Wild Bill, where he's that short range destroyer, doesn't have any personal abilities that can get him up the table. He hasn't got any smoke grenades like the other Shaolin monks, but that's okay if your positioning is good and your other Shaolin are throwing the smoke for him. He's really good at moving up the table with coordinated orders, just like Wild Bill, where you're getting him his position in turn 1, so that in turn 2 and 3 he can really threaten. He's a lot like Miyamoto Musashi in that sense as well. He's so good at defending the midfield. If you come in close to him, he's got all these short range options. He's so close to Miyamoto actually in terms of stats. He's not quite as good in CC, but it's Miyamoto. But he's only a little bit worse. I mean, CC23 at martial arts 4, that's 2 dice with an explosive CCW. Whip 14 flash pulse is the same as Musashi, I believe, which is He's really, really good. He has all, he'll go in and he'll chew through things. The fact that you can take him as a Shaolin. Now, the Shaolin only have one fire team option, and that's to go with Jing, I believe. The Shadow of Hundun, or wherever he is. Where's he gone? Yeah, the Shadow of Huang Li, which is weird because he's already quite expensive, and if you take Lan Kai with him, neither of them have smoke. And the cool thing about taking Shaolin with Jingka is that the Shaolin can throw smoke, get him to where he needs to be dangerous. Whereas if you take Lan Kai, then both of them are sort of running up the field naked, and they're going to need other units to support them and throw smoke for them, i.e. other Shaolin. And the fact that Shaolin in a link team with Jingku is not impetuous means that you can get that reliable smoke out without having to suppress them and having them run out into places they shouldn't be. So I'd rather take a link team of Jingku and the Shaolin as opposed to Lan Kai. I'd rather just run Lan Kai on his own for that midfield threat and the annoyance and how much fun he is to use, especially with super jump. He's kind of a bit like Hippolyta in that sense. If he gets a free run, he will just run through someone's whole link team, things like that. He's well, maybe not, because without grenades, smoke grenades, but if you set it up, you'll get a lot of value out of this 22 points cost. I think it's really fun, cool stat line, and a beautiful model, one of the best. Shaolin Warrior Monks, last thing in the faction. Shaolin are very good. You see them in vanilla Jing all the time just because it's the super cheap 5-point chain rifle smoke grenade. It's just the utility in that is brilliant. If you set them up properly, the extreme impetuous doesn't really matter because they run up to a building, they throw smoke sideways, they support other units, Ruishi moves in, shoots through it. So yeah, you should take them. The AV 5, I would probably run 2 to 3, one of them in the link team with Jinku, and a couple out there just to support my other Harry's teams as they move up the table. And of course, for 5 points, you don't really care what happens to him, but if he ever gets into close combat, he's pretty damn good at it. I would never shell out for any of these other profiles. If they were linkable, I mean, the smoke grenade launcher is cool, but they suck at shooting. You're better off just having them throw it. The boarding shotgun, again, you shouldn't really do it, not with ballistic skill 9. Just take this 5-point guy and just have a few of those in the army. Just scattered around the place, just ready to throw smoke for anything that might need it. I think it's just really cool that they can take 5. I wouldn't, think badly of you if you took 5 of them, because they are extremely good. So that is my thoughts on the profiles of White Banner. When I have a chance to have a think about it, I'm going to make some lists and talk about strategy and positioning and deployment and stuff like that. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Tabletop Republic, our local store in High Wycombe. We've got a YouTube channel now, which we'll be doing lots of stuff like this. I've got another video coming up soon, which is about why you should play and buy Infinity the game, because I absolutely love it, and I think that more people should get into it because I think it really is truly one of the best tabletop games out there right now. But what you should do is you should definitely like and subscribe to our new YouTube channel. You should also check out our other videos. We've got card pack openings and information videos about older versions of 40k and different models. Our big boss Tom is putting out videos about 3rd edition 40k. He's painting up some models and he's doing reviews and having a look at some of those older models and kits. Those are really fun to see, especially if you're around my age, which is ancient. But yeah, till I see you guys next time, goodbye and thank you for watching.